Is Steen good to go for Tuesday?
Yeah, he's all good.
And Mosquera still?
Yeah, he's still out at this moment. Just evaluating different options for him.
So when you have such a quick turnaround between the emotionally charged game and moment of Saturday and now a very impactful game on Tuesday, how do you deal with the emotions of the team? How do you try to keep flat, or do you just try to keep them riding this adrenaline?
I mean, look, I think there's in life you get moments like this and you have to enjoy them. I think that I've said this before in the past is like I rob myself of these moments at times, and you have to be really present where your feet are. And I know I've said that too, but it's really true. You really enjoy the moment you got, and then when it's gone, then you move on and you process what's happened and take the good with it. And I think that now it's about trying to take it and gain momentum with it. Don't let it go, because it was a great moment. It's been a lot of heartache, I think, throughout the season, and so it was a moment to really enjoy, but realize that the job's not done now and you have to push forward. We live to fight another day, and but we still want more.
I asked you about Montreal after Saturday, and I shouldn't have done that.
Is that an apology?
Y'all haven't had success against Montreal. Haven't had success against Montreal this season. What went wrong in those first two games, and what needs to go right on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, there were two different games. The one away from home, we conceded a lot of pressure, and then at halftime we made some adjustments. We got into the second half and we were much better for about 6 or 7 minutes. The goal came off one of our mistakes, and then all of a sudden red card, and that changed the trajectory of the game. I actually thought we defended really well with 10 players, and then created counter-attacking opportunities, made bad decisions on that part. So I said it last time, staying with 11 players would be great, because that gives us a better chance, and then we can have an actual tactical game and really try to fight that way. And then the game at home, like when I watched it back, my reflection was that it wasn't what I thought it was in the moment. In the first half, I thought it wasn't good enough in terms of intensity and setting the tone and all those things. That might be true, but I think that from a game standpoint, there was nothing really in it. Either side could be quote-unquote boring in some ways, because it ended up being 1-1. We got the goal back. So I think it's about capitalizing on the opportunities and minimizing simple mistakes. The second goal that they scored is something that we had talked about how we could prevent it. So making sure we're really solid defensively, disciplined and organized, and then take care of our opportunities when we do get them.
The final 10 minutes of the Orlando game, y'all were under it a great deal. In past games, that's been a situation where y'all have given up a goal, but you didn't against Orlando. How much confidence does that give the guys?
We did. They called it back.
The first half, final 10 minutes of the first half.
Okay.
Yeah. How much confidence do you and the guys take from y'all were able to actually keep the focus and get through that, which is not a situation that you've had a lot of success in this season?
Yeah, I mean, I was still frustrated, because I think that at 2-0, it should have been 3-0. We missed opportunities to find decision making in the transition moments that could lead to better chances to potentially put it 3-0. And then I think in the last 10 minutes, we're under it. We have to weather those storms, and even conceding the goal, I think it's really important for their mentality of like we can bend but we won't break, and then just continue to fight with it. So. I would hope that it gives them confidence that, hey, we were under it, we didn't concede again, and we stuck with the game. And then now we'll see. The challenge will be to do it again.
And is that what's necessary to succeed in the playoffs, when defense becomes even more paramount? Yeah,
I think every single moment, you look at set pieces, you look at just overall alertness. Those are the differing points in the game. Like, you can't fall asleep, you can't switch off for 1 second. Even you look at Montreal's 2 goals they scored, they come from moments of New York City turn their back, free kick goes, all of a sudden a fumble in the box, boom, goal. So I think for me, it's the little details, the little moments of being really alert, and that's something that we have to be hyper-focused on.
Rob, how have you taught that or coached staying focused? Because the mentality of this team has been questioned. Sometimes they fall apart in key moments, and then they'll show flashes as well. Like the Orlando game is like a big picture now. We know that this team can win a tough game. Well, how have you personally seen the evolution of this team's mentality, and what has been your part there?
Yeah, I mean, you can try to recreate things like that in training, whether it's manipulating rules or frustrating them with bad calls in small-sided games and things like that. They think we do it, because we don't see the foul, but sometimes it is on purpose. Sometimes we don't see it. So it's about that's trying to keep them sharp in those moments, and then just continuing to show up that, like, no matter what comes your way, you got to keep being resilient and keep showing up. So I think leading by example in that way, when things go our way or don't go our way, we show up with the same mentality to work.
I mean, can we say that this team has thick skin? Because that's been a part of the scrutiny. The identity of this team is always sort of focused on how you guys attack, but to Doug's point, to advance, you've got to defend. Like, do you think this team has thick enough skin to get through this one-match elimination game?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the performances that they've put in throughout the last 4 or 5 months. I think they have it. Yeah, it's game to game, and sometimes it's not 90 minutes, and that's where the frustration comes at times, because you see the glimpses of it, but that has to be consistent. And in the playoffs, it's the key moments, and being when you are under it, can you manage those moments and then take care of the chances that you do create.
And then Joseph, he's scoring again. Obviously, he had a really good game against you guys here at home. What changes with him? Is it sort of typical defending of a center forward that with his movements, or is there a different message for your center backs?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be hyper alert of him, because he's sneaky. He thinks he's like really sneaky when he's behind your back line, and then he moves into attack, and then when moments where you think he's really not defending or just walking around, he is really alert. He's got a goal scoring mentality. So yeah, it's the way I was touched on before, is being really alert in every moment, and he is a specific one, especially on set pieces. We give up, for me, a sloppy one there. So it's a moment that things pop in the box and he finds it. So being alert where he's at, and that you got to be aware of the other ones, because he's got young kids around him that'll run for him, and I know he probably enjoys that part.
Yeah, I bet.
Before Saturday, y'all had only scored 4 times inside of the first 30 minutes all season. Why do you think that is, and what do you do to kind of correct that?
Why I think that is, I'm not quite sure on that one, but that's been a big talking point about being able to score first and being on the front foot. You see how it changes the game a little bit. Again, like, can we have that killer mentality to go and get the third, because then maybe it is a whole different game. 2-0 was not the most comfortable, and then they score and it makes it 2-1 away from home is not easy as well. So there's not an easy answer for that, but it's like continuing to talk about those simple moments, and yeah, I think like making sure that, I told them too, it's interesting that we scored 2 that early, because I said if you score 2 in the first 5 minutes, the game is 90 minutes long. So the game doesn't just finish because you scored 2 goals. So it's making sure that you know that each moment matters, especially in the playoffs, and then from that you have to compete 90 minutes.
How would you describe Saba's leadership qualities, or just generally what he brings to the locker room emotionally?
I mean, I'm not sure about him as a leader, and that's not to take away from him. He quietly goes about his business, even though I know he tells you guys it's Saba time. So he's somebody that consistently shows up, and he's working. He's all over the place. So he's consistently working, and that's one thing that awesome, but also drives me crazy. But it's in a good way. I mean it in the best way. But he's a good kid. He works hard. He really cares. I think that sounds really silly, but that high care factor of the group, and I reference like when he was away with the national team when we had the changeover earlier in the season. We were messaging back and forth, and he was like, "I can't wait to come back. Like, we're gonna make something this season." And I look back on those times, and he means it. So you can see it in his effort. And anytime he's been away with the national team, he comes right back in. He's like, "I'm ready to go." So yeah, from that standpoint, that's a lead by example type quality.
I know you mentioned before he has this tendency to kind of roam around, do his thing. How do you balance that as a coach? Just like in your own mind, like, am I more strict on him to make sure he's in certain positions, or do I just let him go? I
mean, my mentality with the players in general, the way I like to coach, is I'd like to give them structure, and then from there is decision making that they can go and create space or go and find different pockets of space or areas. He ends up in areas where we typically sometimes don't talk about, but also then he produces. So then who am I to say that it's wrong? But when I've asked him to do something, and it goes for any player, when we ask them to do something, we make sure that if it doesn't produce, then, hey, we've asked you to do this. Let's make sure the next time we try to correct that. At the same time, if him or any other player goes in a different area, we ask that they cover for each other, so somebody else then fills that pocket of space or defensively helps out.
Any worries about Alexi not being on the ball enough at this point?
No, I mean, like I think teams know he's a good player as well, so the teams are going to highlight that he's got an ability on the ball to find pockets of space. When he does get on it, he can help us create, and I think that he also needs his teammates' help around him. So when he can facilitate with them, like, they need to also produce the final product.
We brought up a lot of narratives that this team has carried for several seasons. Now, not all of them positive. Is this freeing that you can just kind of get rid of all those since this is a one and done or one in advance playoff scenario?
Yeah, I mean, that stuff's external, so it's not really been a big focus of mine of like proving the narrative wrong. It's been a one-off game for us for a long time. I know I've said that to you guys that I just take every game as it comes. I really do. And whether that's been success or not success, that's really been the mentality of I couldn't plan too far ahead because you just don't know when that next game is. That's your last game or whatnot. You didn't know what's going to happen. You don't know how far you are away to get out of it or how close you are to actually find that success. So this is an area that we're unfortunately at this moment comfortable in, that we know that it's one game and then we'll see. You live to fight another day. So we keep that same mentality from us.
In these last 4 games on the road, the team's gotten a result since Leagues Cup, 5 on the road, 4 in a row. The first one was the Galaxy game. Do you think the mental strength, the mentality has improved with this team on the road over your time?
Yeah, I mean, there's no data that can tell you that. There's no probabilities. There's no number that can tell you that. So that's intrinsic. That's inside the players. That inside the group. It's something that we've touched on about before. Of that, no matter what's happening on the outside, if inside we're good and we're sharp, then it doesn't matter if you play home or away. Playing at home is awesome. There's no doubt about that. But playing away and silencing a crowd is also great.
Rob, I mean, based on the result in Orlando, this like us against the world message to the team seems to have been effective. I asked Brad the same question. Does that message evolve now before this game tomorrow night? Is it the same message to the players? Yeah,
the message has been pretty consistent. It's always been about just being a group, a real solid group, and then just being super inclusive of who's in our room. Because ultimately, and I don't take that messaging as maybe it's disrespect to everyone else on the outside, but I just look at it that no one is on the inside seeing the work that goes into every day, and they don't live our lives, and they've got jobs to do, and I get that part. But at the same time, if people are, you probably understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, if we listened to that, we wouldn't have played half these games. If we would listen to everyone what they said, the probabilities was 10%, why play the game then? Just let the data play out, and then a simulation, and the game's over. So I think that's where we can intrinsically look at ourselves and say, oh, you know what, we got this. They say that, no problem. But in here, we actually have a belief. That I had a belief, not because of everything on the outside. I had a belief of what this group could do. Now we've achieved part of that, and I think that I've seen this league, and that's why the results going our way, I knew that could happen. I was part of teams before. I was part of Colorado Rapids when Salt Lake beat us on the last day. They got in and they won MLS Cup. So things like this have happened before. So there was that, and then also just for me, the own internal belief that I have in the group of players and staff that anything can happen.
Is there anything that you can point to that we haven't seen that you think has been really a key part of this, like not salvaging the season, but getting to the players to this point where they're still competing in the postseason?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, what you guys don't see is what happens every day, how they show up every day, how they support each other, how they challenge each other, how they come into the facility, or how they bounce back from criticisms, or how they bounce back from poor performances. And I mean that all the way throughout the whole season. So that's just, and that goes down to personal relationships of staff to players, players to staff, and everybody. So I think that there's not one thing I can touch on, but yeah, it's hard for you guys to get that feeling, and that's okay, because if you're not part of it, you won't fully understand it. I could tell all the stories or tell you a heartfelt story about somebody, but you won't have that same connection. But there is something that intrinsically in the group that they keep fighting, and they're still alive.
How did you approach training today with such a quick turnaround time?
Yeah, we trying to get guys as fresh as possible. So yesterday we had a regen. It's really, really light. Some guys went outside, some guys just massage and just overall recovering in the gym. And then today was just some lighthearted stuff, some walkthrough, tactical stuff, some video, and then some guys that needed a little extra did a little bit extra.
Managers always hope that their teams are peaking going into the playoffs. I'm curious, do you think is your team peaking, and how much better can it be?
It's unknown. I think that I'd silly to say that we're peaking. I think that we have to show consistency. It's only the second time we've won 2 games in a row since March, so I understand that part of it. But I think there's more to go in the group. You only get one chance to prove it. You win that game, now you give yourself a fighting chance for more.
Thank you, Russ.
Good. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, Rob.